parlor was blue with smoke. Every man and woman there was decked to the nines, like they were prancing the streets of downtown Las Vegas. The clinking of eyes drew my attention to the man at the back, Tony. He was smoking a cigar, letting it hang from his teeth as he observed the melting ice in his snifter. Always clad in his best pinstripe suit, Tony was a slim man and the henchman of a mob boss named Ricardo. Ricardo was straight out of Italy and spoke with gusto. Ricardo was my target. I approached Tony, who looked up at me with bleary eyes. "Ah, Martin, finally decided to show up, huh?" His Americanized Italian accent was thick, his gesticulations emphatic, and he spoke with his cigar still hanging from his mouth. "I told you I'm a busy man." I sat down on the leather armchair beside him. "You say you have a lead on who might be after me?" "Yeah, some guy who goes by Frank the Tank." My blood ran cold. Too close for comfort, that. I duped. "Who?" "What? Don't tell me you don't know Frank the Tank. Everybody knows Frank the Tank." "Nobody has ever met Frank the Tank," I countered. "Yeah, but everybody knows the information broker." Tony took a cigar between his fingers and took a sip of his brandy. "Everybody knows Frank the Tank because everybody knows of Frank the Tank, or knows someone who knows him. If you know about the information broker, then you know Frank the Tank. And if you're someone who knows about him more than he lacks, and he doesn't know about you, you can bet he's going to find out, find you, and eliminate you." Tony waved the statement away, dismissing my warning. "Bah, you can't believe everything you hear. That's just what people say so you won't get too close to Frank the Tank." "No one gets close to the information broker." I rubbed my chin. "How'd you reckon Frank the Tank and the information broker's the same guy?" Tony took a long drag of his cigar, lighting up his face with the burning ashes before exhaling his response. "Ricardo says he learned his identity." I made no attempt to hide my eagerness and pulled out my pistol, checking it to be sure. "Take me to Ricardo now." Tony chuckled. "You really want your hands on Frank the Tank, don't you?" I let out a laugh, mostly mirthless, only mildly amused. "Yeah, I do." Tony downed the rest of his drink and stood. He beckoned me to follow, and I did. I followed him to a back alley and into another parlor, this one vacant, save for the lone man standing in the center of the room. His gel-slicked hair made his face long, and his pungent cologne tickled my nose. He turned his wicked grin on me. "Ricardo," I disdained. We sized each other up as he spoke, circling the room like predators, keeping a watchful eye for any sign of attack. "At last, we meet," he sneered. "You two know each other?" Tony observed the scene, keeping a safe distance. He knew I'd been hunting for an enemy, and that I was out to kill. He knew I now sought to learn everything Ricardo knew about Frank the Tank. If he knew Ricardo was my target, he didn't let on. Same way I didn't let on about my knowledge of the trap. "Tony," Ricardo began, his eyes never leaving my gaze, "must have told you why everybody knows Frank the Tank, yes?" I gave no reply. "Because everybody knows one called Frank the Tank, or of him." He grinned, his white teeth only making me want to punch his face and even more. "I know Frank the Tank." Tony said something, but my mind was focused on Ricardo. "The expression goes, every Tom, Dick, or Harry, because everybody knows a Tom, or a Dick, or a Harry. I know a Dick and several Ricks." It was like a scene out of a Western motion picture, the way the two of us continued our slow dance of who will shoot first. "They labeled them Jane Doe and John Doe because everyone knows either a Jane or a John. I know a John." Ricardo stopped, and so did I. I kept my eyes straight and level, staring deep into his. But in my peripheral vision, I was calculating every twitch of Ricardo's wrists and fingers as he slowly brought his hand closer to his belt, closer to his gun. "Everybody knows Frank the Tank, because everybody knows the information broker." Ricardo repeated, his sneer menacing. I leaned forward, narrowing my eyes. Except this Frank the Tank. Nobody meets him and lives. He's got a trail of bodies to rival Genghis Khan. Too fast for my nemesis to react, I raised my pistol and shot Ricardo square in the chest. Eyes wide, the mobster fell onto his back. My pistol still smoking, I aimed it at Tony, feeling a regretful pang. Whoa, come on, man! Tony lifted his hands in surrender. It was clear to me he trusted me more than he should. I can pretend I never saw nobody shoot Ricardo. You don't even have to tell me why. I lowered my gun hand, considering. Martin, come on. How long have we known each other? Either Tony was thick or he was a good actor. Martin's my last name. I stepped forward and wrapped an arm around Tony in a friendly hug. I could pin this all on Ricardo, but I raised my gun and pressed it to Tony's abdomen. Nobody meets Frank the Tank and lives. I barely gave Tony any time to register. The gunshot resonated in the room. Backing away, I let Tony fall to the floor. I stepped over Ricardo's body before holstering my gun, and without glancing back, I left the scene. Everybody knows Frank the Tank, because everybody knows the information broker, but nobody meets him and lives. Not if they know who he is.